Hey, Steve Mignoni here doing the junkyard crawl in Berniston, Massachusetts at Berniston Auto Wrecking with a 1985 Saab Turbo. Now, today turbo chargers are found in everything. I mean, like probably every third car on the road's got a turbo. Well, Saab was one of the leaders in the turbocharged charge, really. And by 1983, with 100,000 cars sold, Saab was the world's leading maker of turbocharged cars. Now, the Saab Turbo arrived in 1977 on the 99 series, a one-year deal, but from 1978 through 1993, the Saab 900 could be had with the turbo. Now this is one of them right here. We see the turbocharger logo right here in the fender. When you saw that, you knew for 1985 you were dealing with 175 horsepower powering the front tires. This car, when it was new, cost $17,400, which was $6,000 more than a non-turbo 900. But what did you get for your money? Well, check this out. A lot of guys have 55 Chevys with fiberglass tilt noses, right? Well, Saab had one too, but in this case it was for safety. A hood that could open with the hinges at the back might blow open and screw you up on the road while driving. But here, what they did is they hinged the hood from the front, so when you do this, the hood does that. Pretty trick. Okay, let's go around here. Now this is the 2-liter turbocharged engine. 1984 brought the 16-valve head, which we see right here. Previous engines would have been a 4-valve head, and again, 175 horsepower right here. Now this is set in the engine compartment at a 45-degree slant. The idea being that it laid the engine down lower for a lower cowl and hood height. And again, front-wheel drive, front engine. And it is kind of unusual. Most front-wheel or front-engine cars, front-wheel drive cars, the engine's mounted transverse, like on the Omni, the Horizon, Volkswagen Rabbit, Honda Civic. Well, Saab mounted the engine longitudinally, which means, of course, straight fore and aft. And even weirder than that, the engine's mounted backwards. The flywheel, or the torque converter, is mounted at the front, whereas the alternator, the water pump, and the drive pulleys are mounted here at the back of the engine against the firewall. Now, I used to work at Bruce Beard Automotive in North Brookfield, Massachusetts, back in the 1980s, and I worked on these kind of cars. And I'll tell you this, these things have twin pulleys and twin belts for the alternator water pump. And that was for reliability. But changing belts on one of these things actually takes longer than changing a clutch disc, because the clutch is up front. It's a simple matter of changing a clutch on these things. You pull a jack shaft out, up comes the disc, and you replace it. So it's kind of a weird deal where changing the belts on one of these things took longer than doing a clutch job, or about the same. Kind of weird. Now this one is an automatic, and it is the second year for the intercooled engine. This is the intercooler pipe right here, the intercooler, this puppy down here, this aluminum structure. And what that does, it allows cooler, denser intake charge, because turbochargers generally, they work with compressing the intake charge, which kind of makes it hot. Well, the intercooler chills that down and reverses the problem of having detonation. Now, this is also the second year for what was called APC, Automatic Performance Control. If you come around this side of the engine bay, Shane, we'll see the turbocharger is located on the front of the engine. Now, the turbochargers on these, of course, make boost, but if you happen to make a mistake and run some 86 octane gas, well, the APC, or the Automatic Performance Control System, has a NOx sensor that detects any kind of detonation, and instead of reducing timing or fuel delivery, what it actually does is opens the wastegate. So the boost is reduced if you run crappy gas. So that was the Saab APC turbo system. So it kind of prevented people who didn't know better from damaging their Saab engines. Now this one is a sunroof equipped car. And again, the safety element on Saabs was first and foremost. We got to remember that Saab was formed in 1937. And what does Saab mean? Well, SAAB stands for Svenska Aeroplan AB, AB being the Swedish equivalent of incorporated, so SAAB. And of course, Saab made airplanes until 1949, when they first started introducing automobiles or passenger cars with the Saab 92. But again, this is a 1985 Saab 900, and this family of Saab 900 was built between 1978 and 1992. But here's a 1984 issue of Auto Test. This is basically a new car preview guide right here from '84, and the Saab 900 gets a nice write-up. Now this was done just before the 16-valve head. That's the standard 4-valve head right there. You can see it's got a skinnier cam cover. But again, we see right here all the optional equipment and the price on this puppy here when it was a new vehicle was $17,400. Now here's the thing, up till 1980, 78 and 79, all of these cars were two-doors. 1980 brought, for the first time, the four-door sedan. Now this is not a hatchback, but rather it's a four-door sedan with an opening trunk. Now here's the thing, on Saab turbos, two-door models and cabriolets, which arrived in 1986, they had a really cool rubber trunk spoiler. Well, the four doors didn't get a spoiler. So that was one thing that was kind of a negative on the turbocharged four-door sedans like this. But inside, we'll trade places. You can see it's got the leather interior. Spare tire option, just kidding. But this does have leather interior, which is part of the sunroof turbo package. Up front, we can see this one has a safety-oriented dashboard. The gauges are all oriented, so the things the driver uses most frequently are located closest to hands. 125 mile-an-hour speedometer in 1985. Let's keep in mind that the Ford Mustang wouldn't have a 125 mile-an-hour speedometer until 1989. Camaro, 1985. They stuck with the 85 mile-an-hour craziness, but not Saab. In 85, they went back to the 125 speedo, which was actually pretty realistic. Now we see there, that's the automatic, but between the seats is the ignition key, that hole down the bottom. Well, that was a good thing and a bad thing. The good part being, it wasn't there to cut you or hurt you in a car crash like it might have been on the steering column. But in that situation there, sand got into the lock barrel, and it was a classic scenario. People with Saabs like this, the key goes in, key goes out, but so does a bunch of sand. So you'd wind up replacing lock barrels on these things a lot because of the location down there. Gravity loves those things with the sand. Another safety feature is how the rocker panel is designed or not. If we look down here, we'll see that there's an indentation between the outside of the body. It's kind of like, where's the rocker panel? Well, if we go to the bottom of the door, we'll see that the rocker panel actually is integral to the door. So when you close the door, it actually forms a bit of a beam for even better side impact protection than most cars. And again, this being a four-door, it's a pretty unusual platform for the turbocharged 175 horsepower intercooled 16-valve engine. Not a 5-speed, it's an automatic, which is kind of a bummer. But with that said, there was some soccer mom someplace who was kind of hip and pretty cool. One little detail here, a little day two touch, is these rear window louvers. This right here, these are aluminum. And this is not a Saab item, but rather a pretty popular day two item. In the back of Road and Track or Car and Driver magazine, you'll often see send-away ads for these things. They're hinged, just like a 69 Mach 1 Mustang. Hinge comes up like that for cleaning of the rear window. And we can see where it is, equipped with a notch right here for the centrally located third tail light, which again was something that arrived in 1986 on the Saab 900. So not seen here, but this part is sort of a one-size-fits-all item, a day two add-on. So that's the story of the 1985 Saab 900. This one a pretty unusual four-door, but keep in mind, you know, long before Buick kind of became known as America's premier turbocharged car maker with the Grand Nationals and the T-types, Saab was building turbos as early as 1977 in quantity. And again, in 1983, with over 100,000 cars sold, Saab was the world's leading maker of turbocharged passenger cars. Of course, now turbos are ubiquitous, as they say, but it kind of all started right here. Now I know the Corvair in 1963 and the Olds turbo cars of 1962-3 were also turbocharged, but again, Saab really put all their eggs in a turbo basket. You could get naturally aspirated Saabs too during this time, but again, Saab really took the turbocharge and really made a lot of money and a lot of publicity selling turbocharged cars in the late 70s, early 80s. So if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the Steve Mag's YouTube channel. There's lots more to come here on a hot, sunny day in Berniston, Massachusetts. I promise I won't faint. We'll be back with more.